of Justice. We are announcing today charges against 324 defendants for their alleged participation in healthcare fraud schemes involving approximately $14.6 billion in false claims submitted to Medicare, Medicaid, and other healthcare programs. This enforcement action involves the seizure of cash, as well as luxury vehicles and properties, returning real money to American taxpayers and to our government healthcare programs. We are seeing a disturbing trend of transnational criminal organizations engaging in increasingly sophisticated and complex criminal schemes that defraud the American healthcare system. As part of this takedown, we've identified and charged defendants operating from Russia, Eastern Europe, Pakistan, and other foreign countries. These individuals have infiltrated our healthcare system to steal American taxpayer dollars. As just one example, we dismantled a scheme involving a sophisticated operation run from Russia and Eastern Europe that strategically bought dozens of medical supply companies in the United States and submitted more than $10 billion in fraudulent healthcare claims to Medicare. To make matters worse, these perpetrators used the stolen identities of more than 1 million Americans spanning all 50 states to perpetrate this scheme and submit these false claims. But I'm pleased to report that federal agents
want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
Hey. Why this beat so cold?
We will make America proud again. When you try to kill our we will make America wealthy again. And yes, together, we will make America great again.
Well, boy, oh boy, what a timeline. World of politics. So much going on so fast. Guess what? Whether you love it or not, hate the man, love the man, he is your president. Donald Trump strikes again. And we've seen what just took place with the shooting. Reducing our prayers, love, and condolences with the National Guardsmen. I mean, it's just a disgrace. Trump has now paused migration, calling out Joe Biden, calling out the auto pen. On top of that, tariff revenue is record breaking. Come to find out, the experts were wrong about this, and that. You know, also trending, Trump has called out Minnesota, the Minnesota fraud with the you know what's going on down there, and the Somalians, and he didn't call Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, seriously retarded. So I know y'all see that trending right now, you know, and boy, he's ripping apart Somalians, calling out Ilhan Omar, Tim Walz. You know, he didn't call the reporter a stupid person. You know, you just can't make this up. Old Donnie in the flesh. You know what I'm saying? We actually have a president, whether you like it or not. And before Donnie came along, I'm telling you, we see how what was going on, and he exposed a lot of things. A lot of things that we are now talking about today is because of this man right here, President Trump. You know, love or hate the man, got to give it to him. This is our president, y'all. We actually have a president. Nobody's asleep. You know, I know when Trump blinks his eyes or he comes out there a little bit tired or whatever, working 24 hours, they try to get the best picture they can of him slumped over. You know, they try to get they little moment of fame. If Trump come out there and he dragging that leg, or if he, you know, just a little bit looks a little bit off balance, they attack the man, hold him to the fire. If he come out there with his shirt wrinkled or suit wrinkled, or he got a stain on his suit, they gonna call it out immediately. You know, and we cannot forget that everything is the big bad orange man fault. It's everything that takes place in this world if a plane falls out the sky in Japan, in Canada, wherever, remember, it's the big bad orange man's fault, you know? But again, Trump has stunned America with some big announcements this past week, leading up to this weekend. And again, man, you just can't make this up. But we honestly wanted to get into this on today's show of another big finding that just took place. And it says, in the last 12 hours, President Trump has paused all third world immigration, called for deporting millions of illegal and legal immigrants who hate America, and stopped the funding to South Africa for targeting white farmers. Boy. But this right here, they found something big. This is the big thing we want to get into. And I told y'all, we like to expose things in broad daylight, man. You know, but it says this is how Democrats get $30 to $200 million in a few short years with a $174,000 salary. Never forget that the 6 treasonous Democrats that voted to shut down the government and not pay the military is the same ones who told military to commit treason to Trump. MAGA here and proud of it. Are you? Oh boy. 38 trillion national debt. Now we all know how we got here. Billions of dollars of American taxpayer money are being stolen, and not one of the mainstream news outlets will talk about it. Facts. Until Trump got in office, no one, not one president prior to him, has ever bothered to stop the corruption. I'm absolutely disgusted with every single president in my lifetime on both sides that has allowed this to go on. Oh boy. Democrat Party, the criminal party. But again, y'all, told y'all, a lot of this stuff that's coming out, I honestly think a lot of these things and a lot of these talking points, a lot of stuff, probably would have, it had probably been a long time before we actually got to this point if it wasn't for President Trump. You know, some people hate to admit that, but just the brutal, honest truth, you know. And this is why still, and again, why majority of Americans still reside with President Trump. And even if they agree or disagree with some of the things he's done so far, this is why so many people love President Trump. They love this administration again. And we are praying they keep our best interest in heart. And again, to remember that he is a human being. We are all not perfect, you know. I know he's been getting a lot of backlash lately, and the left's been trying to once again bash the man as he's been calling out reporters. There's the whole piggy thing, the whole calling people stupid and calling them. And again, I don't know if y'all know, but a lot of people don't care. Just telling you. And they honestly think President Trump is just being President Trump, and what, you know, he doesn't have a politician's mouth. He's gonna call it out. He's gonna be very, very blunt, and that's one reason why a lot of people love President Trump. You know. But let's go and get into this. They found something big. You just can't make this up, man. You know. Trump pardoned the turkey. That was so hilarious, man. I'll tell you, people are going to miss this man. We've had some of the greatest, the funniest moments, some of the greatest times with President Trump, man. You know. And a lot of people are admitting that now. Like they're saying politics is going to be boring after Trump is gone, man. What do y'all think of that? Let me know in the comments down below. But let's get into this.
Exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. And here's your meme of the day, brought to you by 5mind.com. You know, the Democrats really thought they did something. They created something, or really it feels like every 6 months or so for the last 10 years has been the same repeating pattern. Democrats engaging in some sort of ridiculous, massive political stunt, and then convincing themselves that it's the turning point. The walls are officially closing in on Donald Trump, thanks to our brilliant strategy. And of course, the latest strategy was their shut down stunt. They really thought this was their big comeback moment. They very clearly wanted the headlines to read something along the lines of Republicans shut down the government because they hate you and they hate healthcare even more. They hate the poor, they're dangerous, they want you to die, they're extreme, they're fascist, yada yada. But instead, what did they get? Well, I think they got a healthy dose of frickin' karma, as all of it is evidently flipped on them, as these Democrat scams tend to do. The shutdown didn't prove that Republicans were reckless and full of hate. No, it proved that Democrats have been propping up a rotten, broken healthcare regime that is bleeding taxpayers dry. If anything, all they did was help feed into the DOJ mandate. They exposed the scam. And now, well, the government taxpayer scam cartel is being totally frickin' exposed and hunted after by Trump's DOJ. The Democrat fraud machine is now very clearly within sights. In other words, the Democrats have once again played themselves. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on in the latest healthcare fraud finding. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks. So we've got Operation Gold Rush that just dropped. And I guess, all of a sudden we're really starting to understand what it is that Democrats are so terrified of. Maybe it's this kind of thing that they're trying to hide. Maybe this is why they're throwing such a freaking tantrum at the idea of conducting audits and getting to the bottom of illegitimate taxpayer money flows. Embezzlement, laundering of taxpayer dollars.
Thank you all for joining us today as we announce the largest coordinated healthcare fraud takedown in the history of the Department of Justice. We are announcing today charges against 324 defendants for their alleged participation in healthcare fraud schemes involving approximately $14.6 billion in false claims submitted to Medicare, Medicaid, and other healthcare programs. This enforcement action involves the seizure of cash, as well as luxury vehicles and properties, returning real money to American taxpayers and to our government healthcare programs. We are seeing a disturbing trend of transnational criminal organizations engaging in increasingly sophisticated and complex criminal schemes that defraud the American healthcare system. As part of this takedown, we've identified and charged defendants operating from Russia, Eastern Europe, Pakistan, and other foreign countries. These individuals have infiltrated our healthcare system to steal American taxpayer dollars. As just one example, we dismantled a scheme involving a sophisticated operation run from Russia and Eastern Europe that strategically bought dozens of medical supply companies in the United States and submitted more than $10 billion in fraudulent healthcare claims to Medicare. To make matters worse, these perpetrators used the stolen identities of more than 1 million Americans, spanning all 50 states, to perpetrate this scheme and submit these false claims. But I'm pleased to report that federal agents intercepted and arrested key members of that organization at U.S. airports and the U.S.-Mexico border, cutting off their intended escape routes. This takedown resulted in criminal charges against 74 defendants, including medical professionals who fueled America's deadly opioid crisis for personal profit. These are not isolated instances of poor judgment. These are calculated schemes designed to exploit Americans struggling with addiction while enriching the very people who were duty-bound to help them heal. We charged pill mill operators who prescribed unnecessary opioids. We dismantled networks of corrupt pharmacies that existed solely to distribute drugs to addicts and dealers, feeding the addiction crisis that has devastated so many American communities.
Holy frickin' moly. 324 defendants, 500 federal districts, 12 state attorney generals, transnational networks, a massive operation stealing billions of dollars with stolen identities and phantom equipment, and of course all of it on the backs of taxpayers. These people have essentially used the moral cover of healthcare to loot the treasury blind. And you know what? Just saying that sentence out loud, the first thing that comes to mind is the Democrat modus operandi. My healthcare, we must protect healthcare, everybody needs healthcare. Healthcare's a right? All of these, narratives, these emotional manipulations to pull at your heartstrings. Meanwhile, they just want the massive cash flow. They just want to be skimming off the frickin' top. And it's crazy because in the corporate world, this stuff would be identified quickly, the people would be held to the fullest extent of the law and no one would bat an eye. But for some reason, there's this notion that in government, just kind of part of the system. Like Jamie Raskin Raskin told us about crime. It's just part of the American way of life.
Crime has always been part of our history.
It's almost as if there's just been this normalization of government corruption. People have been brainwashed to think that it's perfectly normal or it's just part of the system. What can you do? And the good outweighs the bad. But for me, honestly, I think it's even more unacceptable than fraud and theft that's happening in the private sector. We're talking about money that American citizens in good faith have given to the government to be spent on important programs, to be spent on taking care of the most vulnerable and the people who need it. And then to sit there and watch this money disappear into a black hole of scams and fake billing, billions of dollars. It's just frankly disgusting. And I think honestly, there ought to be a new legal category for this kind of thing. It's one of the highest levels of betrayal, of frankly taxpayer treason that I could imagine. I think people who are caught engaging in these kinds of taxpayer-funded scams, their lives should be dismantled and destroyed. Prison for life. If the numbers are in the hundreds of thousands, maybe even freaking tens of thousands. In my view, this kind of corruption, theft of the taxpayer, is one of the ugliest things that you can do. It is a betrayal. It is treason against your nation and its people. And really what it comes down to is the entire social contract. You know, there ought to be some respect there. There ought to be some standards and transparency enforced. But of course, for some reason, according to the Democrats, any such notion is offensive. You know, why is that? Why are Democrats working so tirelessly to protect the waste, the fraud, and the abuse instead of protecting the taxpayer? And engaging in this behavior as they're screaming that you're just attacking healthcare, you're attacking the vulnerable. No, I think the people who are interested in these kinds of topics, the people who voted for the DOJ mandate, they're attacking the theft, the fraud, they're attacking the model that clearly invites massive levels of abuse. And so it seems now as if two clearly defined sides have been created here. You've got people who say, hey, let's audit, let's claw back, let's redesign the incentives so this stuff doesn't happen, let's create transparency in the system. Frankly, in my view, I think government spending should all be happening on a publicly available ledger, a log, unless it's maybe like national security spending. Everything should be transparent, every dollar should be traceable. And in a lot of ways, that's what people are asking for. You've got one side that wants to identify the fraud and fix the problem, and then you've got the other side that recoils in disgust if you even mention it. They're not defending the people. They're defending the status quo. They're defending their taxpayer rackets, the cash flows that goes directly into their offshore freaking bank accounts. But anyways, it seems Democrats have once again played themselves. They started this government shutdown to create a new political talking point, the Republican healthcare crisis, but all they have done is expose their healthcare crisis. And now the second element, further findings revealing that it's less of a healthcare crisis and more of just a massive government fraud and ineptitude crisis. The whole freaking thing, the whole racket is being exposed. And of course, Democrats have only themselves to blame for highlighting this as the national conversation. Anyways, that's what I got.
Watch. Let everything, I'll tell y'all, man. Truth will prevail. Be exposed in broad daylight. Single time, man. Those ones that's been screaming to the top of those lungs, those conspiracy theorists, the ones that's been calling this out for a very long time, all they're gonna say is, I told you. Remember we told you? Just gets worse and worse and worse for the Democrat Party. But yeah, man. Talk about the protests. There's a lot of other things we really should have a protest on. You know, American taxpayer. All right. Just can't make this up, man. Boy, oh boy, oh boy.